Welcome to the Sales Influence Podcast, where we talk about finding the why in how people buy. I'm your host, Victor Antonio. Thank you for joining me again. Always excited to have you as my listener. Anyway, today I want to talk about something I've discussed in the past, but I just want to go just a little deeper, maybe give you a little twist. You're going to love this. Let's put this under the topic of decoys and getting people to buy more. That's what I'm going to talk about. Now, let's take a step back. In my past podcasts, I've mentioned, based on studies, that if you offer somebody two options in a proposal, two options, let's say one's at $500, let's say one's at $300, that the majority of people will choose the cheaper option, the less expensive option. Why? Because the brain is a risk mitigating machine. The brain always chooses to reduce risk when it's uncertain or uncertain of what it really wants. Now, if you have a relationship with a customer, maybe you can upsell them to the higher price. But if you don't know somebody and you're dealing with a company for the first time, you may want to just, I'll buy the smaller option now. And then if I like it, I'll upgrade later on. That's how the brain works. Now, in order to get people to buy that option, the $500 option, what you might want to do is insert a higher priced option, now offer them three. So now instead of just $500 versus $300, maybe you add a $700 option. So you got a $700 option, $500 option, a $300 option. And again, the brain being a risk mitigating machine will probably say, you know what, that one up there is too expensive at $300 might not be enough, and let's go with the one in the middle. That's the way the brain mitigates risks. For example, and I've talked about this in the past, when you go to Starbucks, you get three options, right? You got the big one, which I think is the venti, you got the grande, and then you got the tall, right? Three options. When you go to McDonald's or Burger King, you get three options. Because again, they realize that people kind of go, you know what, one's too big, one's too small, let's go with the one in the middle. It's almost like the Goldilocks effect, right? So again, when you're proposing something, always have three options and put the one you want the client to buy right in the middle. Now, that said, we've set the foundation. I want to take it a step further, a little deeper, if you will. So National Geographic did an interesting study. And if you go on YouTube and you type in National Geographic popcorn, experiment, you'll find what I'm about to talk about. And it's interesting, in this experiment, they did a popcorn test at a theater. And they had a $7 option and a $3 option. Now, it should come as no surprise that the majority of people said, I'll just take the small one, $3. And that makes sense, right? The brain is reducing risk. Says, you know what, why pay $4 more? I don't even know if I'm going to eat all that popcorn. I'm going to go down to the $3 one. So people bought the $3 option. Now, if we stick a $5 option in there, the majority of people will drift right into the middle, right? Now, they didn't do that part of the study, but I assume that that's what would happen. If I put a $5 option between a 7 and 3, people go, I'll go with the one in the middle. So here's the question. Now, we can get people to buy the small one. That's the easy one. If you have a $7 and a $3, the majority will go for the small one. And if we put a $5 option, we can probably succeed at selling that as well. 7, 5, 3, and let's go with the $5 option. But how about if we want people to buy the $7 option? How should we price it? Well, in this experiment, they used something called decoy pricing. And so here's what they did. They inserted a middle option, but it was closer towards the $7. In other words, it was at $6.50. So they had a $7 option, a $6.50 option, and then all the way down to $3. Now, what was interesting that the immediate response is maybe you'll look at the $3, but then immediately the person shifted to the $6.50, right? Let's go towards the middle. But then, as you'll see in the recordings, when you watch the video, you hear people saying things like, for 50 cents more, I could just get the $7 option. Why don't I just do that? Right? For 50 cents more. That's the rationalization. That's their thought process. So when they looked at the three options, they went right at the $6.50, forgot about the $3, thinking it might not be enough. And then all of a sudden it became a debate whether they should spend another 50 cents or not. Now, how can you apply this in the real world? Well, let's say you're a travel agent, right? You're a travel agent and you want to present three options, three packages to your customer. Again, if you present three options the straight way, right? Let's say one's at 20,000, one's at 15,000, one's at 10,000, the majority will go towards the 15. But if you're commission driven and you want them to buy the $20,000 option, maybe instead of doing a 20, 15, 10 distribution, you might want to do a 20, maybe a 17, and then 10 distribution. In other words, your highest price package is 20,000. Then it's 17, and then it drops all the way to 10,000. And what begins to happen, you'll see it in the customer's mind, they'll immediately discount the lower priced one because they're thinking, well, that probably doesn't have enough. Let me look at these other two options. And now it becomes a discussion about the gap between the $17,000 and the $20,000 option. So as you go forward, as you're pricing, ask yourself, you can actually price out three options. That's always a given. You should always price out three options. But this time when you do it, look at your middle option and shift it closer towards the biggest offer you have and watch the magic happen. Clients will immediately shift towards saying, hey, what's the difference between buying this middle package and the top tier package? And you'll be surprised at how many people actually choose the bigger package. You shifted them by simply inserting that decoy price at a higher price, closer to the top level price. You've shifted them into buying that bigger package, which translates into a bigger commission, and maybe you'll hit your quota this year if you're selling something big. And that is it for this Sales Influence podcast. Don't forget to leave me some feedback on iTunes, Stitcher, or YouTube. As always, I do appreciate your comments and try to get back to you as often as I can. Also, check out my online sales training platform, the Sales Velocity Academy. We've added new courses. The course is growing. If you haven't checked it out and you want to learn how to sell more faster, go to salesvelocityacademy.com. Lastly, I want to thank you for listening. This is Victor Antonio, always reminding you, selling ain't hard when you know how. Take care. Hi, I'm Victor Antonio. I'm an author, sales trainer, and keynote speaker. I'm often asked, what makes a great speaker? Is it someone who delivers real content that the audience can use? Is it someone who engages the audience so they're part of the learning experience? Or is it someone who can motivate an audience to push them beyond their comfort zone and discover new abilities? The answer is yes. But the most important thing to remember is that I'm not there to look good. I'm there to make my client look good. Simply put, it's never about me, and it's always about them.